Tension and uncertainty filled the air as events began to unfold surrounding Jack Abbott's mysterious disappearance. The search for him had already shaken several families, and now new clues were beginning to surface, clues that would send those closest to him racing toward answers they desperately needed. In her office, Phyllis Summers paced impatiently behind her desk. Her mood was clearly sour, and anyone walking into the room could sense her agitation immediately. Lauren Fenmore Baldwin sat nearby, trying to remain calm despite Phyllis' obvious frustration. Phyllis had been pushing Lauren to join forces with her on a new business venture, and she had expected an answer by now. Instead, Lauren continued to hesitate. Lauren folded her arms thoughtfully before responding. She reminded Phyllis that this wasn't a small decision. Walking away from everything she had built to start something new required careful consideration. She wanted to talk things over with Michael Baldwin first. Michael and their son Fenmore Fen Baldwin were currently away on a trip, and Lauren felt it would only be fair to discuss such a major change once Michael returned home. Phyllis clearly didn't like that answer. She sighed heavily and leaned against her desk, irritation flickering across her face. Lauren noticed the tension and quickly realized there was more going on than just impatience about a business partnership. Phyllis seemed distracted, almost anxious. Lauren tilted her head slightly and studied her friend. It was obvious that something else was weighing on Phyllis' mind. She began asking questions. What deal was Phyllis trying to make? Why was she so tense about it? Phyllis avoided giving a direct answer. She brushed the questions aside and tried to keep the conversation focused on Lauren's decision, but Lauren knew Phyllis too well. She could tell when something was being hidden. Eventually, Phyllis glanced at the clock and announced she had a meeting to get to. Victor Newman was waiting. Without offering any more details, she grabbed her things and headed out, leaving Lauren sitting there with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, at the Newman ranch, another conversation was unfolding. Nikki Newman sat with Victor in the living room, reflecting on something she had noticed earlier that day. She mentioned seeing Phyllis leaving the property earlier and admitted she was surprised when Victor confirmed they had been meeting. Victor calmly explained that they had been negotiating. The subject of the negotiation, however, raised Nikki's eyebrows. Chancellor. Nikki seemed intrigued and slightly puzzled about why Victor would be dealing with Phyllis over Chancellor. But that wasn't the only thing on her mind. She went on to mention that she had recently run into Tracy Abbott. Tracy had appeared worried. During their brief conversation, Tracy asked Nikki if she had heard anything from Jack. When Nikki pressed for more information, Tracy seemed reluctant to reveal too much. The situation struck Nikki as odd. Victor, however, didn't appear particularly concerned. He shrugged and acted as though Jack's whereabouts were of little importance to him. If Jack had disappeared, Victor suggested that was Jack's problem. Nikki studied her husband carefully. Sometimes Victor was difficult to read, and she knew he had a habit of playing things close to the vest. Still, something about his casual reaction felt suspicious. Not long afterward, Phyllis arrived at the ranch again, this time at Victor's request. Nikki watched with curiosity as the two of them began discussing their business matters. What puzzled Nikki the most was Phyllis' apparent willingness to let go of Chancellor. That didn't seem like Phyllis at all. Phyllis was known for fighting fiercely for anything she believed belonged to her. Seeing her so ready to negotiate raised questions. Eventually, Phyllis realized that Victor had not shared the full story with Nikki. She pointed that out. Victor simply smirked in response. The look on his face suggested he was enjoying the moment far more than he should. Elsewhere, far from Kenosha City, Jack Abbott was dealing with a very different situation. He found himself aboard a yacht, under the watchful eye of Patty Williams. Patty seemed oddly cheerful given the circumstances. She explained that someone had contacted her anonymously and offered her a large amount of money. The job. Watch over Jack. Patty claimed the offer had come out of nowhere. She didn't know who had arranged it, only that the money was substantial. But that wasn't the only reason she had accepted. Patty insisted she had always wanted a chance to make things right with Jack. In her mind, this was an opportunity to reconnect with him, even if the circumstances were unusual. Jack listened carefully, but suspicion lingered in his eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that Victor Newman might be behind the entire situation. Victor had both the resources and the motivation to orchestrate something like this. Jack voiced his theory. Patty quickly dismissed it. She waved off the idea and insisted they shouldn't waste time discussing what she called Jack's silly theory. Instead, she wanted to focus on something else. Jack, determined to learn more about where he was and what was happening, attempted to negotiate with her. He asked for a tour of the yacht and more information about their situation. Patty considered his request for a moment. Then she made an unusual proposal. If Jack wanted a tour, he would have to give her a kiss. Jack looked at her uncertainly. The request made him uncomfortable, but he knew gaining information was important. After a short pause, he leaned forward and gave Patty a quick peck. Patty frowned immediately. That wasn't good enough. She insisted Jack had to kiss her like he meant it. Reluctantly, Jack complied. He leaned in and kissed her more passionately, though the moment clearly made him uneasy. As Patty embraced the kiss, Jack stared over her shoulder, his discomfort evident. While Jack struggled through the awkward moment, back in Kenosha City, the search for him was gaining momentum. Kyle Abbott, Diane Jenkins Abbott, and Billy Abbott gathered together at Jabot. They were reviewing security footage from the parking garage where Jack had last been seen. The footage showed a black SUV that appeared to have taken Jack. Kyle focused intently on the screen as he examined the details. He zoomed in on the windshield. Something caught his eye. There was a small parking detail, a tag or marking that indicated where the vehicle had recently been. After studying it closely, Kyle realized it pointed to a marina. Not just any marina. One located in Kenosha. Billy quickly calculated the distance. It was about an hour away. The discovery gave them their first real lead. Kyle and Diane immediately felt a surge of hope. If the SUV had been at that marina, there was a chance Jack might still be somewhere nearby. Billy remained cautious. He warned them that the clue could lead nowhere. It might be nothing more than a wild goose chase. But Kyle wasn't willing to sit around waiting. This was the first tangible piece of evidence they had found, and he was determined to follow it. Diane agreed. Even if the lead turned out to be wrong, they had to try. For Jack's sake, they had no other choice. The search for Jack Abbott was about to take a new and potentially dangerous turn. While Kyle, Diane, and Billy prepared to chase the new lead that could finally bring them closer to Jack, another important conversation was unfolding back in Kenosha City. At Crimson Lights, Sharon Newman sat across from Nick Newman with a concerned expression on her face. The atmosphere between them was tense, and it was clear Sharon wasn't satisfied with the answers she had received so far. She leaned forward and looked Nick straight in the eyes. Sharon wanted the truth. She asked Nick to explain exactly what had happened during his recent trip to Los Angeles. Nick had claimed he was trying to flush out Matt Clark, but the details of the plan remained vague, and Sharon didn't like the uncertainty. Nick sighed and ran a hand through his hair before explaining. The whole plan had been simple in theory. He had hoped that by making certain moves and applying pressure, Matt Clark would reveal himself. But things hadn't gone as planned. Matt never showed up. Despite Nick's efforts to draw him out of hiding, Matt had remained completely out of sight. Nick admitted that it had been frustrating. He believed Matt was still out there somewhere, watching and waiting. The problem was figuring out where he was hiding. That was why Nick planned to go back to Los Angeles. This time he intended to push harder and take bigger risks in order to force Matt into the open. Sharon immediately objected. Her disapproval was obvious. She worried that Nick was putting himself in unnecessary danger. Matt Clark had already proven to be unpredictable and involved in serious criminal activity. If Nick kept pushing, there was no telling what kind of trouble he might attract. Nick, however, was determined. He believed the only way to stop Matt was to confront the situation directly. Before Sharon could continue arguing, the door to Crimson Lights opened. Noah Newman walked inside. Beside him was Sienna Bacall. Their arrival shifted the focus of the conversation. Nick and Sharon both looked surprised to see them together. Sienna approached their table with a polite smile, but there was something serious in her eyes. Noah quickly explained that Sienna had something important to share. Sienna sat down and took a moment before speaking. She told Nick and Sharon that she wanted to repay them for protecting her. Both Nick and Sharon had stepped in to help her when things became dangerous, and she hadn't forgotten their support. Now she had information that could potentially help them. Sienna had been doing some digging. She had started investigating Matt Clark and the network he was connected to. What she discovered was troubling. Matt wasn't acting alone. His involvement in the drug trade stretched far beyond Los Angeles. According to the information Sienna uncovered, Las Vegas appeared to be the central hub of the operation. Matt functioned as the Los Angeles contact. He handled distribution and communication, acting as a middleman who connected the LA side of the operation with someone more powerful. Someone based in Las Vegas. Nick listened carefully as the pieces began to fall into place. If Matt was only a link in the chain, then there had to be someone else pulling the strings. Sharon's eyes narrowed as she considered the possibility. She wondered aloud if this mysterious person might also be the one hiding Matt right now. If Matt had gone underground, it made sense that someone higher up in the organization would be protecting him. Sienna nodded. She had reached the same conclusion. That realization had pushed her to dig even deeper. Eventually, she managed to uncover a name. One single name connected to the Las Vegas side of the operation. Reza. The moment Sienna said the name, Sharon's expression changed. Recognition flashed across her face. Sharon immediately realized something important. She turned to Nick and explained. Adam Newman had once lived in Las Vegas under an alias. During that time, he had gone by the name Spider. While Adam was living there, he had encountered someone named Reza. Sharon believed it was likely the same person. Nick's mind began racing. If Reza was involved in the drug network and had connections to Matt Clark, then the situation was even more complicated than they originally thought. The mystery surrounding Matt's disappearance suddenly had a new layer. Perhaps Matt wasn't just hiding. Maybe he was being protected. And if Reza was the one pulling the strings, then finding Matt would require dealing with someone far more dangerous. Back at the marina in Kenosha, Kyle, Diane, and Billy continued preparing for their trip. The lead they had discovered might have been small, but it was enough to ignite hope. Kyle stared at the paused image from the security footage again. That black SUV could be the key to everything. If it had been parked at the marina recently, then whoever took Jack might still be nearby. Diane shared Kyle's determination. Jack meant everything to their family, and the thought of him being in danger made her heart ache. She was ready to follow the lead wherever it went. Billy, however, remained cautious. He had seen too many situations spiral out of control to blindly chase a clue without considering the risks. He reminded them again that the lead might not lead anywhere. The SUV could have been at the marina days ago, or the connection could simply be coincidence. But Kyle refused to back down. Even if the chance of finding Jack there was small, it was still a chance. Billy eventually nodded. He understood Kyle's determination. After all, Jack was his brother. If there was even the slightest possibility that Jack was being held somewhere near that marina, Billy knew they had to investigate. The three of them prepared to leave. None of them realized that the truth about Jack's situation was even stranger than they imagined. Meanwhile, aboard the yacht, Patty Williams seemed completely content. She moved around the deck with a carefree attitude, enjoying the moment far more than Jack was. After the kiss she had demanded earlier, Patty appeared delighted. Jack, however, was growing increasingly frustrated. He wanted answers. Where exactly were they? Who had arranged for him to be kept here? And most importantly, how could he escape? Patty continued insisting that everything was fine. She claimed there was no reason for Jack to worry. But Jack wasn't convinced. The more Patty talked, the more certain he became that someone else was orchestrating the situation. Patty might be watching over him, but she wasn't the mastermind. Jack's suspicion returned to the same person he had mentioned earlier. Victor Newman. If Victor had arranged this, then the situation could become even more complicated. Victor was known for playing elaborate games when he believed someone had wronged him. Jack studied Patty carefully. She might not be telling the whole truth, but he suspected she didn't know everything either. Whoever had contacted her anonymously had clearly chosen her for a reason. Patty was unpredictable. And unpredictable people were often easier to manipulate. Jack realized he needed to play along for now. If pretending to cooperate kept Patty calm and gave him opportunities to gather information, then that was exactly what he would do. The search for Jack was closing in on its first major breakthrough. Kyle, Diane, and Billy were heading toward the marinas. Nick and Sharon were uncovering deeper layers of a dangerous criminal network. And somewhere behind the scenes, powerful figures like Victor Newman and the mysterious Reza were shaping events in ways no one fully understood yet. The truth was coming. But when it finally surfaced, it would bring twists, danger, and shocking revelations that would change everything. If you enjoy Y&R spoilers, updates, and daily drama, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos.